Welcome to the next level of your greatness by Andreas Dudas, the Legacy Maker podcast. In these episodes, Andreas shares some powerful stories of great people who are positively shaping the world of tomorrow with their purpose-driven legacy. It's Andreas's goal to extend his personal tools and even mistakes to the greater community of those who wish to transform their life while gaining extraordinary success, not only on a personal journey, but with others, and interviews with those who've created a legacy of impact from all over the world on 5 continents. And now here's your host, Andreas Dudas.
Okay, hello everybody and welcome back to my Legacy podcast. Today I have the privilege to talk to Ariana. I met Ariana almost 10 years or even more ago in California when I started to get interested, first of all, in, we call it here in Switzerland, horse-assisted leadership and personality trainings. You call it, I guess, in proper English, equine-guided education. Yeah, and then I spent a couple of days on your beautiful ranch in California, and I also learned a lot about myself. It was it was a life-transforming challenge, but also experience, and I enjoyed it very much in your nice setting. And I do not have to tell more about you, Ariana, because you know yourself much better than I know you. So please, the first question I have to you is introduce yourself quickly. And the following question would be, how did you find your purpose or passion for what you are doing or you've been doing for years, for decades now? Please.
Okay. Well, my name's Ariana Strozzi Mazzucchi, and I'm not Italian, interestingly enough. Uh, and I am a land person. I feel like I'm a land healer. I've been that way since I was born. I grew up on the southern Marin coastline of California, in nature. So I feel like nature and the plants and animals raised me in many ways, and they are my teachers to this day. And I'm a zoologist, and so as well. And coming out, graduate from UC Davis with zoology, and I was a raptor specialist, so birds of prey, hawks, eagles, owls, and a young optimist for helping to save the planet and the environment. And I'm a lifelong horsewoman as well. So on some hand, my joke is that I've always tried not to make my living as, hang my shingle as like a horse trainer, because I didn't feel like that was the box that I fit in. But horses have always been, in a sense, part of my business and how I speak into the world. And so I've, after graduating college, became a single mother very quickly. And so I was sort of a young horse trainer, young entrepreneur. I joined some local, chamber of commerces, started my own businesses, not just horse training, but other things, and started studying leadership through those opportunities. And I kind of had, I was about 25, and I had an epiphany that this was a big choice point for me. And I realized that I was much more comfortable in the world of animals and in nature than I was with people. And I felt like somehow I needed to learn how to come back into the world of people. I didn't really know why and what my destiny was, but I had a feeling that my destiny, I had to learn how to be with people comfortably again. And so I made an agreement with myself to come back into the world of people, but with the way that I know how to communicate and listen and perceive from nature, animals, and plants. So that began my journey. And fast forward, I was doing the leadership programs, learning that part, and seeing that the more I learned about leadership it's really not about the tools or the techniques. It's certainly not about how smart you are or your title of authority. It's really about your way of being. And I was also doing some Aikido at the time and studying somatics, which is sort of like a whole nother topic, because there's lots of versions of that. But just how I was showing up to the world differently than how maybe I thought I was showing up. So it was that kind of self-study. And one day I was like, who better to tell you when you're being present and centered than a horse? The horse is going to tell you, with if you're there and you're present, if you're arrogant, if you're cocky, like it's a real deal. And your life, your safety is at risk based on how you're being. So I was fortunate enough that I had all these sort of communities of people that I could. So I started bringing people out, which I started Leadership in Horses in 1989, and brought people from all walks of life out to not to train horses, but to learn about themselves through activities with horses, and it was absolutely profound. I It blew me away. I had no idea. Everybody from different walks of life, didn't matter if they were a banker or self-employed business owner, entrepreneur, writer, artist, every person was saying, oh my gosh, this is what really happening in my real life, whether it's in a relationship, in my personal relationships or my professional relationships. And so I was already training leaders and coaches. And so I said, well, let's work with your real life issues and see if we can make a change in how not only you are in relationship with yourself, but how you're in relationship with others, and also in relationship with your vision, your values, your ethics. And so fast forward, 30 plus years later, leadership itself has gone through different iterations and fads and things. And I just really, through nature, biology, our instincts, I really see, to me, leadership is really about relationship. It's really, how am I relating to myself? How am I relating to others? And how am I relating to what I believe in? And so that's sort of the fast forward. And,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
and when I first started out, it was a crazy idea. In fact, it was called Horses, Somatics, and Leadership. And I was a young woman, and I'm sure there was people that were like, wow, Ariana, that's, that's interesting. Um, but, some of my greatest skeptics, particularly men, became some of my best clients because they realized that they could get very valuable information in minutes, within a session with horses that we just couldn't get to by talking and analyzing that even for 6 months or more. So I've had a lot of support from other leadership institutes over the years as well, because they see that value. And then I, as the internet started coming in, and the other people started sort of emerging, basically the work now that I call equine guided education is now something that people are starting to understand. They most often think of it as equine therapy. And there's three main streams. There's mine, which is the equine guided, there's assisted, and then there's facilitated models. So there's these sort of model, so I was there at the beginning watching it evolve, and started teaching people how to do the work around 1997, 98. I formed an association, and I've held over a dozen international conferences, but I held 8 international conferences with this specific concept. And invited all of the founders, all the pioneers, all the people that were out in the world doing this. And we had like 100 plus people from around the world for 3 days, and then workshops before and after, to try to understand and be curious with each other. What are we doing, and how is our work similar and different? Because there are some differences. And so, I got to see everybody else's, the major influencers in the work. And then right about when we met and worked, 2012, I woke up one morning, after this massive conference where you have to start kind of preparing for the next year, and my body just was like, didn't want to do it. So after a lot of soul searching, I realized that I had, what I really wanted to focus on was, you know, um, my students, and also making the change in the world that I want to make. And what was happening through the conferences and the association was a lot of politicking and posturing. And, there's, in the horse world, there's there's a lot of posturing and criticalness of each other. So I just kind of put the association to bed in the forest, kind of like, you know.
Okay, right. Okay, great. Thanks very much for this first introduction. So my provocative question for sure is, and many people ask me all the time, why horses? Why, I mean, to you, it seems to be a stupid question, maybe, but a lot of people, they also leaders, managers, they tell me, Andreas, you could use dogs or sheep or whatever, why horses? Could you explain that just
Yeah,
a little
so
bit?
the shortcut is horses and humans have the same social instincts. So in the animal kingdom, there's about a half a dozen social systems that repeat based on what the species needs to survive. So, food, water, territory, resources, care of young, things like that. And it just so happens that horses and humans have very much the same social instincts. So we're born wanting to be part of the whole, wanting to be part of a herd or a tribe. It's such a deep instinct. It drives everything. And we don't even know. It's not conscious. But even like in psychology, like the fear of abandonment is the social animal's worst fear is fear of isolation, separation, excommunication, all those things. And so when the horse is born, the horse looks if in the right place, looks to the human as, who are you in relationship to me? So they're hardwired to want to know, who are you in relationship to me? If danger comes and we got to go, how do we relate together? Can I trust you? Are you going to be in my herd or not? It's really very clear. And so that's the big cut of why horses, and horses have been in our lives for as far as we know. And there's a misconception out there in some of this work that the reason why we can do this work is the horse is a prey animal and we're a predator. And I just want to really bust that myth because it's wrong. And as a biologist, zoologist, we're not a predator animal. We're an omnivore. And the predator-prey relationship is very specific, kind of like coyote and rabbit. And also, I've worked with a lot of predators in my life, working at vet schools and things like that. And under, all animals have an instinct to try to survive. And so, that's just not a good model. But the social instinct, what I've learned is that there's this whole realm of communication that's happening energetically, through body language, through tone of voice, through very subtle, even intuitive cues. And that's how the horses connect with us. So, why horses? Horses help us get in touch with our authentic, who we are now, what's important to us, and inspire us to change who we are, to get out of our stuck places and to reach for something new. And I've just seen over the years that, like I said, I've worked with people that don't even like horses. It's not that you don't have to like horses, but people are compelled to want to change themselves for the horse because they literally innately see the horse as an energetic mirror of themselves. So that without us telling them as leadership coaches or anything like that, they feel themselves when they're being authentic and the horse meets them. And when they're lying to themselves, the horse is not connected with them and they can feel it. And the other big thing is the people don't feel judged by horses, right? We're the judgmental animal. And so there's something kind of magical, and I don't know how to explain it, happens is that when we're with horses and working with horses, we're bypassing largely all of the mental chatter that happens. And that's why we can move so much more quickly. So, because they don't really care about our stuck stories. They really want to know, like I said before, like who are you and what do you really care about? And then they get really interested in that, and they want to connect, and they want to be a part of that. And so that's sort of the why horses. And so we can do multiple things, whether it's youth at risk, rebuilding trust with human beings, whether it's being a leader, making a new vision, a declaration for the vision, and learning how to have the confidence and the embodiment to, like, to move forward in the world. Like, my new thing is to, after my book, stand tall without apology, to just be ultimately who you're supposed to be,
Mhm.
without shame or without apology of any kind.
Great. I think I just can recommend to everybody that I think each of us, we have just to experience that, I mean, you explained it very nicely, but I think you have to experience that, especially in such a nice environment where you are living, in order to learn to feel what how it transforms you, I mean, at the very beginning, from the very beginning, I was a little bit somewhat skeptical for sure, but as soon as you are standing in the arena, along with these horses, they don't need that. They don't care about your business card, for
Yeah.
example. They don't care about your title. They don't care about your budget and your financial statement and stuff like that. And that's amazing, So nobody, not a human being, is telling you what is right or wrong. They just mirror you, and you start to experience it on yourself. And this is really great. Yeah. Ariana, on your fact sheet, you have outlined your purpose in a very nice way, and you've written that you help leaders to take a stand for healing the planet. I mean, this is not just a mission, I think it's even a vision, sort of. I mean, a normal, let's put it that way, manager, I would tell you now, hey, Ariana, I have no time for healing the planet. I have to make sure that our company is profitable. I have to lead human beings. I have to make sure that I generate enough revenue, stuff like that. Can you explain that? What do you mean by healing the planet, and why is it so important to you? Why is it so crucial?
Well, if we don't focus on healing the planet, we're not going to be here. And our children and our grandchildren will not be here. And the polar bear and all kinds of beautiful things won't be here. And it's really an issue of self-consciousness. And 100 years plus years, I mean, now time's been flying by, so 120, 140 years ago, we were in nature. Nature, we didn't have running water. I mean, we brought water from the creek, or we were very hands-on, and we were in nature all the time, which was stimulating our somatic awareness and our energetic awareness, and teaching us form of common sense that in many ways we've lost. And we're fast forward to very industrialized societies with really desensitizing mechanical, metals, electric, all of that stuff. And we are, especially, I feel like COVID really shined a big light, which I don't think a lot of people are talking about, on how we are addicted to overworking. We're adrenally, people are sick. They're not that healthy. And if they are healthy, it's because they work really hard at it. So, so all of these things, the reality is we are all connected and interconnected. And the more you learn about that, and horses, in a large way, when we're in a large group, really teach us about that collective energetic space. And if we're not aligned, it's very disturbing. And so I've been studying and exploring and fascinated with, like, what is healthy success? Like, what success used to be, I don't know that it is anymore. Like, 40, 50 years ago, people didn't call you before 9 o'clock in the morning. They didn't call you after 5. They didn't talk to you on the weekends because the technology wasn't there. And so we're now, like, on this rapid hamster wheel, and it's going so fast, we don't often even have time to say, whoa, this isn't really working. And like, if we confronted that, like you said, like, I don't have time to even think about healing the planet, that's sad. And I understand it, I do. But we have to, I mean, I feel like the opportunity to change our course is getting slimmer and slimmer. And the other thing I've learned, because I've gotten to live in so many beautiful environments connected to nature and not have to be in the city as much, and then going into the city and seeing, like, I can see the huge discord between the two. But what I started to see, because I've been a healer, not just of the land, but of people, but honestly, as a healer, my first allegiance is to the earth and healing the earth, and secondarily to humans and helping them to come back into balance, which David Abram talks about greatly in one of his books, The Spell of the Sensuous. Um, and what I started seeing, it was sort of like, duh, like, why didn't I see this before? Is that it's not enough to heal one person at a time or a small group of people and send them back out into a dysfunctional, sick environment. And so that my opportunity and my wish and my inspiration and invitation for people is to make your life more sacred, that what you're doing with your time, what you put your heart into, even what you put your money into, that it has something to do more than you, that it's going to make some difference somewhere else, even to the earth, and to helping us to relearn how to be in a more respectful relationship with the whole earth, but also our surroundings and the animals and the plants that live in that. Because really what we're doing, and even in a lot of spiritual practices, there's a lot of like, what can I take from earth? Like even like for people that have a spiritual practice of, asking their guides, like, I need help, or help me, help me. But I don't see enough people giving back. And in order to be in that sacred relationship and to that healing and finding that balance, there has to be that give and take. And so I don't think it's that hard for a leader to sit down and spend not a terrible amount of time to think, how can I be more conscious in my value system and in my work ethic to help to heal the planet? And we're only just one little, grain of sand, in the massive ocean. But if each one of us does one little thing, whether it's making conscious effort to, like, okay, if I go to get coffee, that I sit down with a cup and not, and I don't have a to go thing, or if I go sit down to eat in a restaurant, that I make that more sacred for my own health, but also for the earth by, having real plates and enjoying my food instead of grabbing something to go in plastic and sitting at your computer and shoving food down your your mouth, which people that are in the health industry know that that's actually not healthy. They have research that shows that now. So I get it, but I also feel like if you have any consciousness at all, I think you want to think of something that you can do to help contribute.
Mm, mm. Um, let's talk quickly about this definition of success, your definition of success, and also to have the courage to take a stand. I think you've gained so much experience over decades, in terms of empowering, inspiring, encouraging people, leaders, human beings to take a stand. And when I'm reading these things in your books and listening to you, I think it has a lot to do with, or in the end, it's all about authenticity, to have the courage and to dare to live up to your principles, to your values, to your purpose, whatever, But so many people, especially as leaders, have lost their authenticity. What do you think? What are the major obstacles, the hurdles you have to overcome in order to reclaim this authenticity? And does the work with the horses help in a fast way to reclaim that, or what is your experience you gained over all these years?
I think I've got a gazillion ideas, but one thing is to stop worrying about what other people think. Um, and us being a social animal, we are worried about what other people think, but we can't make change if we're always worrying about what everybody else thinks, and we can't always be authentic either. And I think that's one of the things the horses teach us, is that it's more powerful to be authentic, and actually that builds trust, and that creates change, not just in yourself, but in other people, versus living in self-doubt, allowing whatever guilt stories you were raised with to permeate. Um, and that's one of the things that we do when we're working with the horses, is we look to uncover, like, what are the hidden unconscious messages from the past that are holding somebody back from being their really powerful, authentic self, the one that can just sort of fly and rise. There's so many different versions, and sometimes we inherit stories from our elders and from our ancestors, and there's been a lot of wars, and even I mean, I think about my grandparents and the things that they said, what to do and not to do, which was important then, but we're in such a different world now, so we have to reevaluate all of our stories, all of the stories that have been passed down about who you should be and who you shouldn't be. And so taking a stand is a process of sloughing off all of the, like, I think of it like a backpack of stories of shoulds and shouldn'ts, and the weight that we carry around, and taking a stand, we actually inspire other people to do the same thing,
Mm,
and then we're not alone
great.
anymore in
Um,
in our new being.
yes, absolutely. So it's all about this relationship you described, So leadership is all about, yeah, forming these bonds, these relationships with yourself and with other people. I think you can just give things away you already own, I mean, if you start to appreciate yourself and really start to gain more clarity about your purpose, your values, and all these things, you also start to dare even more to live up to all these things, I'm just referring quickly to your book. I had to open my Kindle, so, and in one of your first chapters, I'm referring to your latest book, and you can tell a little bit more to our listeners, to the audience about this book. But in one of your chapters, with the main title, My Invitation to You, at the very beginning, you describe a little bit this, I call it the dilemma. There are so many successful, so-called successful people. They have achieved a lot in life, but in the end, they are not fulfilled. They feel, in my words, sort of an emptiness, I mean, there's also a strong need for a healing process, what do you think? How can we support such people? How do you support such people in order to gain? I mean, this is not real success, as you already mentioned. I think it's really the leap from successful life to a life of significance in the end. How could they achieve that? What are your lessons learned? Because in your book, you s- you dive very deeply into your life, and you expose yourself. And I'm deeply impressed. I was really deeply impressed, and I realized there has a lot of things happened in your life over the last years, most probably. But can you elaborate a little bit on that? How to find more fulfillment, a strong relationship to your deepest
Mm.
soul.
I was thinking back where we ended that last piece, and part of taking a stand is having the courage to move forward and invite other people to walk with you, but you're going to walk forward whether they come or not. And but it's that piece, that's the transformation, and so in my book, I was very successful, in many ways. I had a beautiful family. um there's parts of me that are very confident, to be able to do entrepreneurial crazy things that everybody else thinks I can't do. And there's still that private part that feels very alone, um like I said in the very beginning, like separated from people. And my journal is it's a personal memoir, and um yeah, it was very courageous to put that out in the world, Andreas. Like, to actually put it out, and even my father was like, well, just write it, but don't put it out there, kind of thing, and but it was really how to come fully into myself, to stand tall without apology, and to not make myself smaller so that other people would feel better, and or to protect people who were hurting me emotionally and psychospiritually, and learning like how to see when that was happening. So the and how in the book it started, I I didn't think I was going to write a book. I just needed to write, to journal, and to draw. So there's a lot of illustrations in the book as well. And I wrote poetry, as a way to try to understand what was happening to me. Because at the time, it was before I was going through a pretty serious divorce, and I just didn't understand how it got there and how I was caught in it, and how to get myself back into my own stand tall, which I was able to do for other people. But you have to also be able to do that, for yourself. Um, and also worried about my kids and the impact of those kind of things. But at some point, feeling like if I don't stand up for myself and my dignity, if I don't stand up for my dignity, I'm going to die. And dignity is your instinct to be of value, to be acknowledged and appreciated. And I work with so many women and these days, but even men, that are very successful on the outside. Um, I mean, bankers, and, I'm sure they have lots of money and all those things, but inside there's this hole, this pain and this aloneness. And so saw it in my clients, and so the book is really about me being on that hunt or the search for where did this start and how do I break it? How do I break that cycle and
Mm.
detach from it? And so I the book, I started it in third person. So my name in the book is Emma. And for many years I would read the stories, but nobody would have to know it was me. And every story was sort of what I think, that I know there's going to be somebody out there in the world at some moment is going to find themselves in a similar situation as I am right now. And so how do I move through it? And honestly, because I'm very attached to nature, and that nature is my teacher, the plant, the animals, there was always an animal coming at just the right time with just the right metaphor. And so exploring that through story, in third person, allowed me to access my unconscious, my intuitive feelings and impressions, to find my original self, my core self. I feel like we're all born with an original self, like our little spirit self, animal self, and we get shaped by the world. And sometimes to protect, we think sometimes we have to shut ourselves down to protect ourselves, but the world keeps changing and our lives change, and we get to the point where we have choices. And so in the book, there's, at the end of every chapter, there's what I call opportunities and contemplations for the reader to first I actually come back into first person in real time and go, this is really what was happening at that time, and I couldn't see it. I couldn't, or I wasn't willing to have that courage to take that stand for the consequences on my whole family. And so I would talk about it like that. And then the opportunities and contemplations. So one is, the reader can do their own journaling in these metaphors of nature, and then also time in nature. So I would say a really good practice for asking oneself, like, how do I find that deeper, um, what is success to me really at the end of the day? Is it really about money? Is it really about this? Or is it just a feeling? Is it a feeling of
Mm.
contentment
Great. Mm.
inside and peace, that I've done everything I can do? I feel almost emotional, like,
Mm.
to make a contribution to the world. And so start by being in
Mm.
relationship with it. So go sit under a tree, go to the water, go to the mountains, rocks, anything, and and not a power walk, but like like, just start looking at the tree and the colors and notice how it changes something in you, and ask the tree, like, who are you and what do you see? And it doesn't mean you have to hear anything or even find an answer, but just that you're actually going outside of yourself and outside of your human context
Mm.
to get curious about what else is out there in the world. And that would be a way to do it. You
Mm.
could also do it through journaling and illustration, where you're not trying to make something look perfect, but it's really stimulating the nonlinear intuitive landscape, which is where we do connect
Mm.
to everything else.
Great, very inspiring, very open hearted, you know. I would like to quote only one single sentence which really touched my heart, you know. You wrote in your book one sentence where you said no to other people's assessment and took a stand for who you really are. There lies so much energy and also courage in this single sentence. I was deeply
Mm.
impressed, you know. And I think the best thing people can do, they have just to read your book, you know. And yeah, I thank you very much for this sentence. Ariana, we've been talking about leadership in this very short time. I mean, we could continue this conversation for hours for sure, you know. But in order to keep our time
Right.
budget
I
a little
know, I
bit
could go
tight, you
on and
know,
on.
I would like to
Get me
elaborate.
started. And yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I would like to elaborate on one last or yeah, maybe second last question, you know, the plans for your future and your personal vision for you, for this planet, for your planet in this sense. I mean, you've been doing so many things and you've been empowering, encouraging thousands of people, you know. What else is in the pipeline, you know, for you? And what's the big vision?
Well, let's see. Um I've been feeling called, or in a sense pushed to make a have a bigger voice. So I get sometimes pigeonholed into the horse thing, like, oh, you do the horse thing, which I do. And I actually, interestingly, am in a legacy conversation of that right now, where I'm passing part of that work on to future generations, so that I have more time to follow those breadcrumbs of where I'm supposed to be going. And what I see is being a larger speaker, inspiring as much as I can people to, again, awaken into themselves and to their own, sense and sensibility, separating from this linear, rational, you know, system that we've, inherited. It's crumbling at all levels now, and find ourselves at the core, and find other people, um, that are like-minded so my goal is to save the planet. Really, my goal is, like, every person is to awaken the consciousness that we can change our trajectory, that we can de-link from some of the very destructive things that we're doing to the planet. And it's really starts with the creative consciousness of, just because we can make it and have it doesn't mean maybe we should anymore. And instead of, that where we started in the industrial revolution, like, what we, making, and I mean, humans are just so sort of, you know, I mean, cut a tree down. Oh, it's forgot that it's spring and there's a bird nest in there. Like, what if I waited? Or so shifting our conscience to look outward again, like I said, with that curiosity. So I'm I'm writing another book. It's actually written. It's just in the final, but it's more, that book was very intense, that you're reading now, and this next one is very whimsical, and they're just inspirations. I'm trying to get back into my art studio and explore how to create some of those inspirational visual um, ways of inspiring people to step into changing, again, like, what it means to be successful. That we can't solve our problems with the ways that we know how to think. And one of the things I see for the future is, uh, people coming back to how to feed themselves and getting connected to their farmers, and smaller farms where people are connected to those farms and really supporting those farmers, and different kinds of teachers that aren't in, that are helping our children. Our children are suffering by and large in the school system now, and maybe they just need to go be in nature till they're 8 or 9 years old, and then their brain is, more developed, and they already have a lot of common sense life skills, and then that might be more interesting to them. But we really have to change. Um, and the other thing is really changing how we clothe ourselves, because clothing is probably one of the most toxic things in the planet. Um, so it's just finding courage, finding inspiration, supporting, and I'm getting on a lot more podcasts now, which is really fun. And one of the things I just want to say too is I remember like 25 plus, or even probably when I was in college, I had these visions. But I always thought, well, who am I to make any difference? And even when I was in the 2000s, when I had a lot of clients, there was a lot of clients, they didn't want to hear that. They wanted the focus on the money, and that was the meaning of success. And so it's really going to be, I think the future, there's going to be a larger split between, I don't want to say the have and have nots, but people who are really invested in the money and those shiny signs of success, and the people that see success as being able to sit on your back porch and listen to the birds sing, and having a beautiful meal that your heart feels, you're healthy, and that's success. And so
Okay.
that was one other thing I was going to say, but it'll come back to me.
Yeah. But I think, from what I feel and perceive, you are now on the way to move to the next level of greatness. That's my personal perception. You've been doing some great work now, really, with the horses, on topics, a very important topic, leadership. There are so many different opinions, and so much called research on leadership, but you experience it, and you have helped a lot of leaders, or at least human beings, to get real leaders by being more authentic and by learning on what authenticity really means. And I think now you have collected all this experience and you've seen so many things. Now you have to jump on a stage in order to dive, or to get a bigger, a larger
Yeah.
stage, with in order to reach the population in the world, And I hope, and I'm also sure that this podcast will also help you to reach my friends in India or up in Norway or all over the world, because you're doing great work, and I think, you make a real contribution, and you already have sort of are in the process of leaving a great legacy, but it can be even bigger,
Yeah.
and it will
Well, I
become
feel like
bigger.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much for saying that. It really means a lot to me, and I'm really going to try to let that like sink in. And, um, that piece I was saying before, what I fell off of it was that things are changing and people are changing, and we're actually able to have these conversations now, and we're talking the conversation of energy, and communication, and changing things telepathically. All that has become in collective consciousness. All of that's, not a crazy idea anymore, which is exciting. And
Mm,
so,
mm,
yeah, giving myself more permission to be out there in a bigger way, and speaking. The horses, are a huge part, because I believe the horses teach you how to observe and listen through your senses, and not through your rational mind. And that's where the keys to the kingdom are.
mm,
That's where the 98% of
yeah,
information that we're usually not listening to resides.
mm,
And that's where our freedom is as well. So, yeah, I look forward to being out there more.
yeah. I just quote again your famous, or the sentence which touched my heart so much, take just a stand for who you really are, and then you will move to the next dimension of
Mm,
greatness. And I mean, the real, this next level of greatness is to lead a life of significance. You know, this, and as you described it very nicely, it's to find this dignity again. You know, so it's a completely different definition of what success really means. You know, one last question, Ariana, to you: how can people reach you? Do you still provide trainings, coaching, stuff like that, and running seminars for corporations, or how is it?
I do, yes, all of that. So I just started my new website, which is Ariana Mazzucchi .com. So Ariana Mazzucchi, which is M as in Mary, AZZUCCHI.com. And so I have different coach packages there. I still work with visionary horse, people who are trying to change the world through that vein. And I have a creative circle that I've just started, like literally, and it's a monthly subscription, and you can either be journaling or illustrating, and I'm super excited about it. So it's in a group community based. It's because there's a whole private community of people that can talk about, and I'm going to let my cat out of the bag a little bit, but down the road is a larger, community, which is an Earth Whisper Alliance community, to bring people like you and other people together to connect. And what do we do and how do we do this, kind of thing. I'm a little, that's coming. And then I still teach the equine guide education training programs. I still do it privately. I still travel, and I used to be on a lot more leadership stands, and I'm totally into doing that more now. And now that I've got all of my ducks in a row and my technology's all modernized, because, living on a ranch, that was the hardest thing, is because usually where the ranch is, there's a really poor internet. So that took me a couple of years to solve that. That's a pretty big problem if you don't have good internet with today's world. And so for the equine guide education, if somebody wants to look that up, it's on the website skyhorseacademy.com, Skyhorse Academy. And my books are on Amazon. I have 4 books there. And Amazon is good in that people from around the world can get it there. I also have a website, which is my farm, which is eventually going to fold into my Ariana Mazzucchi, but people can check out my farm philosophy, my land philosophy, at casariranch.com. That's CASARI ranch.com.
Okay, perfect. Ariana, thank you very much. I can just highly recommend your place. I've been staying there, and hopefully I will meet you in person very soon. Maybe next year, I've got to know so many people in the US, especially on the East, but also on the West Coast. And maybe, you will never know. Thank you very much for a highly authentic, open, and very inspiring conversation along with you, Ariana. You will continue to inspire the world and empower a lot of people. And I thank you very much for taking your time. And I wish you all the best for fulfilling your vision and for moving ahead with a lot of great energy in your heart. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been wonderful to reconnect with you. You're doing great things too. I love your work you're doing. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining The Next Level of Your Greatness by Andreas Dudas, the Legacy Maker. If you're on a journey to create a legacy of impact, please subscribe so you can join this community with Andreas, who find the important and life-changing value of creating a purpose-driven legacy. For more information, go to andreasdudas.com. Remember, your legacy may just begin here.